Right now on Morning News Now, a major move by the Fed that could make a big impact on your wallet. Interest rates finally being cut for the first time in years.
Inflation is coming down. The labor market is in a strong pace. We want to keep it there.
We have team coverage with more on the decision, the implications, and how it could impact you. Developing overnight, another sophisticated attack in the Middle East. A second wave of deadly device explosions across Lebanon just one day after a widespread pager attack targeting members of Hezbollah. Now both Hezbollah and Lebanon officials blaming Israel and vowing to retaliate. We will bring you the latest. Also, no bail for music mogul Diddy Combs. More on the ruling by a judge following Combs' arrest on felony sex trafficking charges. And a not guilty plea from ex-movie mogul Harvey Weinstein as he faces a new sexual assault charge. Plus, plot twist, one of Hollywood's biggest studios partnering with an AI startup. We'll tell you about the deal and what it could mean for the future of the film industry. That was, of course, at the heart of those major strikes we saw.
Exactly, a major issue sparking lots of discussion. Good to have you with us on this Thursday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
Yeah, you've almost made it to the end of the week. I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to get started with that long-awaited move by the Federal Reserve, delivering a jolt to the U.S. economy. The Fed announcing Wednesday it was finally cutting its key interest rate by half a point as cooling inflation is making progress toward the Fed's target of 2%.
The move is the first cut since the COVID pandemic, with Fed Chair Jerome Powell saying the economy is in good shape.
It's growing at a solid pace. Inflation is coming down. The labor market is in a strong pace. We want to keep it there.
So what does this mean for your bottom line? Our economic dream team is here to break it all down. NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung and editor-in-chief at Investopedia Caleb Silver. Good to have you with us. Usually we wait a little deeper into the hour to bring in the dream team, but this is important.
Yeah,
so we got
no bobblehead.
We got you at the top.
We're at the top of the show.
Same energy, don't worry. All right, so let's just talk. I mean, this is welcome news. It's also maybe a little bit aggressive for what the Fed usually does. Used to work at the Fed. Walk us through this and what they're doing here.
Yeah,
well, I used Jay Powell.
Oh, we love that. I mean, I used to crunch data, but that's what the Federal Reserve basically looked at yesterday and said, you know what, it's time to make not only an interest rate cut, but do it big, large size, right? Half a percentage point as opposed to the 0.25% moves they usually do. But we have to back up and just remember why the Federal Reserve even had interest rates so high to begin with. The story is inflation, inflation, inflation. And as the Fed raised interest rates to get inflation under control, yeah, the rate of inflation did come down. But guess what? So did the unemployment rate. So the Federal Reserve is saying, you know what? Maybe did we tighten a little bit too much? Is it time to recalibrate? Because the unemployment rate did tick up from about 3.5% about a year and a half ago to 4.2% now. If they want to avoid the unemployment rate spiking, that's the reason why they wanted to cut interest rates. And they did so by a large amount.
There's also these all-important comments besides just the rate from Fed Chair. We hang on his every word. And he kind of hinted that there... Brian's laughing because he knows it's true. He kind of hinted that we might see even more cuts this year. Was that a surprise to you? What do you make of that?
Not at all. And Brian said the magic word, which is what Fed Chair Powell said, which is recalibration. As soon as we heard that, we knew the Fed is on this lowering move. So money's getting cheaper across the nation with a recalibration. They're not worried about inflation. They're worried about job market stagnation, right? So they say they're probably going to lower rates. The target at the end of this year, 4.4%. At the end of next year, 3.4%. If you look at the Fed's summary of economic projections and that dot plot we talked about, the most boring yet most important chart in economics, where's my dot plot? Rates are coming down 3.4% by the end of next year, if you believe the Fed.
And that's a huge difference right there. You mentioned this. I mean, inflation at one point was over 9%, Brian. The goal is to get it to 2%. We are not quite there yet. So how great is the worry that this could actually bring inflation back up?
Yeah, we're at about 2.5% now. And yes, there is the concern that, OK, maybe the Federal Reserve's move yesterday will continue to keep inflation going on its sideways path just above its 2% target. But look, the Federal Reserve makes its moves not because they see the data already achieving the goal that they want to see. Jay Powell has said we weren't going to wait until inflation hit 2% to start cutting interest rates. What's the reason for that? Because they also don't want to be too late to the party in terms of making sure that they get that unemployment issue addressed. Because, again, the concern here is very serious. If the Federal Reserve moves too late to cut interest rates, that could put people out of jobs unduly if the unemployment rate rises farther than it needs to be.
And that is that intricately orchestrated soft landing we're all looking for. So now you buy a house, you buy a car, you do now, you wait. What do you think?
Well, remember what I said, 3.4% by the end of 2025.
Right.
Mortgage rates are coming down. We've seen mortgage financing applications spike, refinancing applications spike. Those have been basically asleep for the last 2.5 years. The housing market's going to pick up, but also new car loans are getting cheaper. Flip side of this, for savers, and this is important, you've been earning 5% plus in the bank and CDs, money market accounts, and high-yield savings accounts. Those are going to come down. You'll earn less in the bank, but the cost of borrowing money is going to get cheaper, which should stimulate more economic activity, especially spending. Spending drives 2/3 of our economy. So that's one of the reasons this is helpful to the economy.
You mentioned what we're going to see next year. Here's a question for both of you. The election is less than 2 months away now, and inflation, we know, is perhaps the top issue for people.
Yeah.
What kind of difference will people see by the time they go to the polls? Will they feel differently about the economy because some of these interest rates drop?
Yeah, well, I think gas prices are a big thing that people pay a lot of attention to. Those have come way down, and I think they're going to see this. People are not so worried about inflation. They want to make sure the economy is in a good place going forward. That really depends on who you are and where you are, but we do have that other Fed meeting 2 days after the election.
And again, to Caleb's point earlier, right, this is not the only Fed cut we're going to get. The expectation based off of that dot plot of what the other Fed officials are projecting for the rest of the year is that there could be another 50 basis points or 0.5% of interest rate cuts by the end of this year. That could provide even further windfall to mortgage rates, credit card rates, auto loan rates, even just by the end of this year. But again, there will not be another Fed meeting before the next election. And that actually happens the day after the election. So that's 2 Super Bowls for us back to back.
Right.
The election and then another.
The question is on that day, do we know who won the election? That'll be a whole nother issue. So,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Caleb Silver, Brian
Busy
Chung,
time.
thank you both for kicking us off this hour. We appreciate it.
Great to have you both here. Well, this morning, Lebanon is on edge after more communication devices exploded in a coordinated attack that is stoking tensions in the Middle East and threatening to plunge the region deeper into a wider war.
Thousands have been injured across 2 days of attacks. The Lebanese health ministry says on Wednesday at least 32 people were killed when walkie-talkies began exploding. On Tuesday, 12 people were killed, including 2 children, when pagers simultaneously detonated across the country. The attacks were targeting devices used by the militant group Hezbollah. Israel has not commented, but U.S. officials have told NBC News that Israel was behind the attacks. Israel's defense minister says the country is now entering a new phase in its war by focusing efforts on the northern border with Lebanon. The UN Secretary General warned this attack could be a prelude to a major operation.
The logic of making all these devices explode is to do it as a preemptive strike before a major military operation. So, as important as the event in itself is the indication that this event confirms that there is a serious risk of a dramatic escalation in Lebanon, and everything must be done to avoid that escalation.
NBC News International correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv. Raf, you have been reporting on this over the last few days for us. What is the latest out of Lebanon this morning? How concerned are they that these attacks are just the first moves in a potentially wider war?
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Lebanon is a country that is terrified and traumatized today after 2 consecutive days of these explosions ripping through the country. Everywhere from Beirut to the south near the Israeli border, the east, the Bekaa Valley, these explosions just one after another. Hezbollah unable to stop what U.S. officials tell NBC News is a vast covert Israeli operation, which is targeting their personnel, but it is also targeting their communications network. And it does appear that the majority of the people killed and wounded in this are Hezbollah members, but there are civilians who've been caught up in it as these explosions are going off in supermarkets, on the street, in the back of buses. We know at least 2 children have been killed among the 32 dead in total over these 2 days. And hospitals in Lebanon absolutely overwhelmed by the scale of these 3,000 or so wounded. And on top of the explosions themselves, exactly as you heard from the UN Secretary General, there is a deep fear in Lebanon that this may be the beginning of a larger operation by Israel. Guys?
Raf, first we had pagers, now walkie-talkies. What are we learning about these devices themselves?
Yeah, guys, so viewers may be wondering, why is it that Hezbollah, this sophisticated militant organization, is reliant on this kind of old-fashioned 1980s, 1990s technology? The answer is their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, instructed members to stop using smartphones because he believed they were vulnerable to Israeli electronic surveillance. So instead, they started using these pagers and these walkie-talkies. Now, in terms of the pagers, they appear to have been made by a company in Hungary. The New York Times, citing two intelligence officials, say that company is in fact a front for Israeli intelligence. So they made the pagers and then they converted them into bombs by planting these small explosives. NBC News reached out to this company. We reached a woman who identified herself as the CEO. She denied that her company makes pagers. So it is just a very, very shadowy supply chain at this moment. And we still don't understand exactly how it is that Israel got these explosives into the hands, into the pockets of its enemies, Hezbollah. Guys?
Raf, we know Secretary Blinken was in Egypt yesterday. As we mentioned, he's pushing for a ceasefire deal in Gaza, as he has been. What's been the reaction from the U.S. to these attacks? Is the Biden administration worried that this could be a setback?
So the Biden administration is stressing the U.S. had nothing to do with these attacks. Two U.S. officials tell NBC News that the Israelis had indicated they were planning something in Lebanon, but that they didn't give details, and the U.S. was caught off guard when these pagers stopped exploding. Take a listen to what Secretary of State Blinken had to say about what's going on in Lebanon, but also the bigger picture here in the region.
It's imperative that all parties refrain from any actions that could escalate the conflict. We're focused on getting this ceasefire over the finish line. That would also, I think, materially improve the prospects of actually defusing the situation in northern Israel and southern Lebanon.
So you heard the secretary saying there that a ceasefire in Gaza would be the best way to calm tensions, avoid all-out war along the Lebanon border. I gotta say, guys, here in the region, there is very, very little optimism about American efforts to reach a ceasefire right now. Guys.
Raf Sanchez, thank you very much for your reporting.
Sean Diddy Combs remains behind bars this morning. Yesterday, a New York judge denied his appeal for bail. This is the second time the music mogul has been denied bail in his federal sex trafficking case. Combs' attorneys had argued the Brooklyn jail where he's being held had, quote, horrific conditions and that they weren't appropriate for a pre-trial detention.
It comes after a federal grand jury indicted Combs on 3 felony counts. They're on your screen right here: racketeering, sex trafficking, and using transportation to engage in prostitution. Combs will now stay in jail as he awaits trial, which is likely to begin at least a year from now. If convicted, he faces a maximum sentence of life behind bars. For his part, Combs has pleaded not guilty and has denied any wrongdoing. Well, former movie mogul Harvey Weinstein now faces a new sex crime charge here in New York City. Yesterday, he pleaded not guilty 1 week after being indicted by a grand jury.
The 72-year-old is also waiting for a retrial in New York for a 2020 rape conviction that was overturned earlier this year. NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson has the latest on Weinstein's legal battles.
More legal troubles for Harvey Weinstein, already serving a 16-year sentence for a rape that occurred in Los Angeles. The one-time movie mogul returned to a New York courtroom to face a new indictment. Charged with a criminal sexual act in the first degree, accused of assaulting a woman at a New York hotel in the spring of 2006. The 72-year-old pleaded not guilty.
Mr. Weinstein has been very consistent from the time of his investigation. He never forced himself on anybody.
Weinstein will also be retried on the sex crimes, including rape he was convicted of in 2020. That guilty verdict, a landmark in the Me Too movement, was overturned this year. The state's highest court ruled it was wrong to allow women to testify about allegations against Weinstein that were not part of the case. Weinstein sat in a wheelchair with officers behind him. Just last week, he had emergency surgery to remove fluid from his heart and lungs. Louise Godbold is one of at least 80 women to accuse Weinstein of sexual harassment or assault.
Justice looks like him being in prison and not able to hurt any more people.
Both sides will be back in court next month to argue if these charges should be tried together. Ann Thompson, NBC News, New York.
For more on this, we're joined now by NBC News legal analyst Danny Savallo. So as we just heard there, the prosecution wants to combine this new indictment with Weinstein's retrial, currently set to start on November 12th. Is that common? What could that mean for both cases?
It would be bad for the defense because while the defense is familiar with the first trial, they have all the transcripts. This is a new charge, a new indictment, and they would need time to prepare. So expect them to argue that they need these cases severed because the one, they have all the discovery, everything they need to know about the case, and the other, revealed just yesterday, is still something they need to prepare for. The defense needs to get discovery, conduct their investigation. They will fight, I'm sure, to keep these cases separate.
So walk us through kind of what happens in either case, because as you just explained, the defense is arguing that they don't want them smushed together. It kind of almost seems like it would be better. You know, it's just like one time, that's it. You don't have to deal with two separate trials going on. But how does this work? Like if it does go forward as one versus if it goes as two?
They are two separate cases, indicted separately, and I imagine had the state of New York, if the prosecutors had known of the second case, they would have indicted them all together. Prosecutors generally prefer to group crimes together because it helps them strategically to lay out all this evidence of all these different crimes and then point to the defendant at the table. For the defense here, for whatever reason that prosecutors decided to indict these cases separately, some years after he was first indicted, well, they may be stuck having to try these cases separately. So I understand the strategy in wanting to consolidate them. Sometimes courts will do that under other circumstances. But likely as not, I expect they'll probably remain separate because the defense really does need more than 2 months to prepare.
Ann mentioned the New York rape conviction was thrown out because of the testimony of women who were not part of the case. The prosecution was trying to show a pattern of behavior. So now with this new trial, without that, how much harder is it going to be for prosecutors to get a conviction?
I don't think it will be that an insurmountable barrier. The reason that all of this evidence of other alleged assaults by or upon other women is excluded is that it walks the line between what is prohibited, prior bad acts. You can't introduce a bunch of evidence that so-and-so is generally a bad person. You can introduce evidence if it's part of the same course of conduct or a modus operandi. Now, the problem is that line is very blurry. Right. And prosecutors in recent years have been using this evidence at their own risk. And many high-profile and low-profile cases have been overturned because they went too far and introduced too much evidence of prior bad acts.
Before we let you go, let's switch gears and talk Sean Diddy Combs. So we just went through how he was not able to post bail. He will remain in jail. How significant was that? And also, does this mean that that was his last chance, that he will be in there until his trial starts, as we said, could be more than a year?
I can't tell you how significant it is as a criminal defense attorney to have your client either out pending trial, even if he's on house arrest. Doesn't matter. You can pick up the phone and call him anytime. Or having him in a federal detention center where you have to schlep there, surrender your phone, you go in with only a notepad, no internet, no nothing, and prepare for trial with somebody that you can see at best maybe once a week. It is a tremendous disadvantage and a tremendous advantage for the government that Diddy will be behind bars pending his trial. And it was probably going to happen because while the Bail Reform Act creates a presumption that defendants should be out pending trial, certain crimes flip that presumption, and the presumption then becomes that you should remain in as a defendant until trial. And the crime, sex trafficking, is exactly one of those crimes. They're generally very serious crimes, gun crimes, other similar crimes. And then Diddy yesterday had the burden to prove why he should be able to stay out. And it was a tough one because the government made quite a case involving guns and threats and obstruction of justice to convince the judge, two judges, no less, in 2 days, that Diddy should remain detained pending trial.
All right, lots to cover this morning. Danny, thank you so much.
Now let's head to Kentucky with an update on a story we brought you a few weeks ago. State police there have found a body they believe to be the suspect wanted in a mass shooting at cars along an interstate. You probably remember this. The body was located in a wooded area by state troopers and 2 civilians as part of a manhunt that stretched out for nearly 2 weeks. It's not clear how far from the crime scene this body was found. Well, during an update yesterday, the Kentucky State Police Commissioner described the scene.
There were articles associated with the body that at this time we feel is Joseph Couch. The body, identified body at this time, will be sent to Frankfurt for positive identification.
Joseph Couch was named a suspect following the September 7th shooting that left 5 people seriously injured. The manhunt for Couch, who was a former Army reservist, involved helicopters while special response teams tracked him across thousands of acres of heavily wooded land.
For the first time in nearly 3 decades, the powerful Teamsters union will not endorse a presidential candidate. That announcement comes with less than 7 weeks to go until Election Day, as Vice President Harris and former President Trump continue courting voters all across the country. NBC's Garrett Hake has the latest from the campaign trail.
In a blow to Vice President Harris, the powerful Teamsters union announcing it will make no endorsement in the 2024 presidential race. Harris becoming the first Democratic nominee not to win the backing of America's largest union in nearly 3 decades. The union releasing an internal poll showing 58% of its members support Trump, 31% back Harris. In a statement writing it was, quote, left with few commitments on top Teamsters issues from either candidate and found no definitive support among members for either party's nominee.
Mr. President, any reaction to the Teamsters' decision not to endorse?
No, they were. It's a great honor. They're not going to endorse the Democrats. That's a big thing.
Big difference in those big industrial states, you think? They're going to make a difference?
I think it will. Yeah, I think so. The Teamsters carry a lot of weight.
Harris has won the backing of other labor groups, including the United Auto Workers. The Harris campaign saying, quote, Teamsters locals across the country have already endorsed her alongside the overwhelming majority of organized labor. It comes as we're seeing signs of new, tighter security measures for Trump. The FBI director saying he's devoting the, quote, full force of the agency to investigate the 2 attempts on Trump's life within just 2 months. Trump thanking Vice President Harris for calling him.
Today, a little while ago, I got a very nice call from Kamala. No, it was very nice.
Meanwhile, Harris, in a speech to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, blasting Trump's call for mass deportations of undocumented migrants.
Donald Trump and his extremist allies will keep trying to pull us backward. They have pledged to carry out the largest deportation, a mass deportation, in American history. Imagine what that would look like and what that would be. How's that going to happen? Massive raids? Massive detention camps? What are they talking about?
That was NBC's Garrett Hake reporting. Former President Trump is holding campaign events today in Washington, D.C. Vice President Harris is set to visit the battleground state of Michigan.
Let's now get a check on your morning news now. Whether there are rain and flooding worries in New England and the Mid-Atlantic today.
Meteorologist Angie Lastman's tracking it all for us. Angie, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. We've got those flooding concerns, and it's not all just because of the rain. It's really mostly because we've got that really strong onshore flow. It is a full moon, so the high tides are high, and that means that the flooding is going to be a concern up and down the coast. We've got 25 million people under these alerts right now. Those are flood advisories that you see in the brighter blue right there. Those onshore winds, they could lead us to up to 2 feet of inundation. So the coastal communities, those waterfront communities that oftentimes see these kind of situations when we have high tides and strong onshore winds, you likely are going to be dealing with that through the day today. So that's something that we'll watch. Atlantic City included in that. As far as the rain is concerned, most of that big batch of moisture has stayed offshore. We've got some of it kind of working its way towards Massachusetts, but otherwise we're going to wait until later today to see some of that kind of wrap around in. That's not going to happen until the later parts of the day as this low kind of spins offshore. The gusty winds will continue. Of course, the coastal flooding will continue. But the good news is tomorrow that low starts to pull away. We'll still see some of this rain across parts of Long Island and New England, the coastal regions. But otherwise, that'll get out of the picture, and we'll look to see some improvements beyond that for that region, especially going into the weekend. Now, another spot that we're watching today, a cold front is going to work across parts of the middle of the country. And it's going to bring us the chance for some strong storms. The good news is we're not looking at a high risk for tornadoes, although it's not zero. But the main threat that we're looking for, the hail up to 2 inches or larger. We could see some strong wind gusts as well. And the threat really includes major cities of Kansas City, Des Moines, and Minneapolis, as well as Duluth. So this will be something that we watch not just into the afternoon hours, but into the evening as well. Looking ahead to the weekend, of course, here's your big picture for your Friday. There's those showers I mentioned. We'll have some rain across parts of the Sunshine State and Michigan and stretching across the Great Lakes. But for the most part, we've got a lot of sunshine on this map. Notice out west, it'll be mild. We've got plenty of sunshine through the middle of the country, although it's going to be on the warm side of things as we wrap up our work week. By the time we get into your Saturday plans, it'll be quite warm across the southeast. That's where the hot temperatures will be. And then the strong storms are going to be in the middle of the country. We'll see those cooler conditions out across parts of New England. And we wrap up our weekend, guys, with a really nice day for the Northeast. A few storms to watch for the Great Lakes and parts of the plains. winds and that heat, boy, it's not letting up across the desert. But look at all that sunshine on that map. I think we'll all be able to find a time to enjoy some sunshine across the country at some point during this weekend.
Love that. There we go.
Sometimes the simplest explanations work the best.
Yeah.
Nice day.
Thank you, Angie.
Angie.
Much more to come here on Morning News. Now, later this hour, a first-of-its-kind partnership between a major film studio and an AI startup. So is it movie magic or a Hollywood-style horror? Or on the deal that could shape the future of filmmaking.
Up first, though, after the break, from Silicon Valley to Capitol Hill, top tech executives grilled by lawmakers over the spread of misinformation online. We will be right back. Welcome back. Executives from some of the top companies in technology testified on Capitol Hill on Wednesday about the growing threat of foreign nations attempting to influence the upcoming presidential election.
Those executives represented Microsoft, Google's parent company, Alphabet, and Meta. They were grilled by lawmakers who are concerned about the spread of misinformation online. At the hearing, the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Mark Warner, outlined his biggest fears in the run-up to the election.
Our adversaries realize this is effective and cheap. But I also think it's not like at the end of election night, particularly assuming how close this election will be, that this will be over.
We have NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin with us for more. Julie, good morning. So the hearing comes just a week after U.S. intelligence officials identified at least 4 major, they say, foreign operations recently attempting to influence the upcoming election. What details did we get on that? What are these big threats that lawmakers see from foreign adversaries, and what were they trying to learn from these companies at the hearing?
Well, hey, guys, good morning. It also came on the same day that the intelligence community said that Iran actually tried to pass stolen information, tried and failed, I should say, from the Biden campaign to the Biden campaign. They said that campaign never actually used. So it just shows you how time sensitive this hearing in the Senate Intelligence Committee was. And Senator Mark Warner, Senator Marco Rubio, these are the top Democrats and Republicans on that panel. They actually said that Iran, Russia, even China are trying to sow chaos, sow division by using, in many cases, artificial intelligence to try and confuse Americans ahead of the election. You see those headlines on your screen, but also, as you heard Warner lay out, what happens after the polls close on election night, how these foreign adversaries are going to continue using artificial intelligence, continue using deep fakes, manipulating media even to try and confuse voters in this country, not necessarily to pick a certain candidate, but just in general to sow division, sow distrust. For example, they talked about how it's not like what we saw in 2016 where there were fake bots, fake people online trying to do this. Now you have Americans who actually don't trust institutions like the media, like government, and that is causing big headaches and problems when it comes to the government trying to figure this out and rein it in.
So, Julie, the big question, what did the executives from these companies say they would do, or at least try to do, to prevent the spread of disinformation and misinformation?
Well, these executives faced a lot of pushback from senators. Let's be clear. They said that they believe that the government has taken proactive steps, but the private sector maybe not so much, including the fact that some of these companies have actually disbanded some of these election interference efforts to try and remove some of these posts online. But some of these executives pushed back. They said just yesterday before the hearing, for example, on one of these platforms, they were able to remove a manipulated video of Kamala Harris at a campaign rally saying things that she never actually said. Take a listen to some more of what they're trying to do.
We've launched Synth ID, an industry-leading tool that watermarks and identifies AI-generated content in text, in audio, in images, and in video.
We've implemented industry-leading efforts to label AI-generated content, giving people greater context for what they are seeing. And of course, we are working across industry to develop common AI standards.
But not all social media companies are following suit. For example, nobody from X came to attend the hearing. That is something Senator Warner pointed out.
Julie, we're less than 50 days out from the election. Do you think, did anyone walk away from this hearing feeling optimistic about being able to stop or contain the spread of disinformation as we lead right up to that?
Well, Senator Mark Warner made a really important point. He underscored that the 2020 elections were actually the most secure, the safest elections in history. He said that is backed up by data. So there has been progress that has been made since the 2016 election, since 2017, everything we saw in the aftermath of that election. But at the same time, the government needs to do more here, too. On the state level, we're seeing a lot of laws on the local level being implemented to try and safeguard our elections from interference, try and putting some rules in place. Labeling artificial intelligence, for example, as you heard some of the social media executives talk about, but there's a lot the government isn't doing. There's a lot of proposals to address this at the federal level, but there's not a lot of buy-in in terms of bipartisan will to actually make it happen. As we've seen, Congress tends to slow walk these things.
Julie Sirkin, thank you very much for your reporting.
It's not just the disinformation threat from overseas that's raising concerns. Here in the U.S., conspiracy theories are quickly spreading online, some of them fueled by artificial intelligence. Well, now a new high-tech program is using AI to help people fight fantasy with facts. NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson explains.
Conspiracy theories about everything from the assassination of John F. Kennedy to what really happened on January 6th. Persistent in politics and beyond. But now, new tech may point toward a potential breakthrough. Meet Debunk Bot, powered by OpenAI and created by researchers at MIT, Cornell, and American, who say it can help reduce people's beliefs in conspiracies significantly.
So let's go in that direction.
We tried it out with one of the brains behind the bot, Thomas Costello, with a conspiracy that decades of debunking hasn't eradicated.
It's one small step for man.
I believe the moon landing is not real.
Right.
I don't believe that. I don't actually believe that.
The bot asks us to elaborate on the belief.
And why is the flag waving?
Yeah.
And to rate how strongly we feel about it.
I'm going to say 99% true.
Then, in a series of screens, the chatbot presents facts, lots of them.
How can you be sure that what it's telling me here is accurate?
Yeah, so absolutely. We found that it tends to be quite accurate. We hired a professional fact checker to go through some of the conversations in our study, a subset, and in 99.2% of cases that we looked at, the fact checker rated the AI's claims as true.
At the end, we reassess how strongly we feel about the belief now. And it's here where researchers found something that surprised them.
Yeah. On average, people reduced their belief by about 20%.
And consistent across a wide range of conspiracies on topics from Princess Diana to vaccinations, they found 1 in 4 participants disavowed the belief altogether.
I think if you gave the facts to a semi-competent lawyer, the lawyer would make a much more persuasive case than the AI does. It's just that the lawyer would have to do all this background or research, and the AI can conjure it up in 12 seconds.
But in reality, getting folks to engage at all could be tough.
What makes you think that somebody who believes in a conspiracy theory is going to go on here and type it in so that their minds can be changed?
Yeah, well, so I would say that a lot of conspiracy theorists end up being motivated by truth and accuracy. Going to a chatbot interface that provides factual information it seems like a good way to do that to me.
Like most technology, it can cut both ways.
You could imagine a version of this that spreads conspiracy theories.
The DebunkBot team now working on refining the tech, hoping it helps shine a light down conspiratorial rabbit holes.
We can use facts to open up the top of the rabbit hole to begin to crawl out.
A belief worth further research. Hallie Jackson, NBC News, Washington.
Fascinating report there. Coming up, a devastating reality: suicide, now one of the leading causes of death among young people.
Up next, an important conversation about the reasons why and one group's ongoing mission to offer hope. You're watching Morning News Now. We are back now with an important conversation as part of September's National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. The CDC says suicide is now the second leading cause of death among young people ages 10 to 14 years old. It's the third leading cause of death for young adults ages 15 to 24.
It's a devastating reality. It's even harder for young people in the LGBTQ+ community. They are 4 times more likely to consider suicide than their peers. That is according to research from the Trevor Project, which is the leading suicide prevention and crisis intervention organization for LGBTQ+ youth.
We are joined this morning by the new CEO of the Trevor Project, James Black. They took over leadership of the organization last month. James, Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by talking a little bit about you. You grew up a queer black person in South Texas, and now here you are, CEO of the Trevor Project. Talk about your journey and how that's shaped what you see as the mission of the Trevor Project.
I always say that this is a blessing and a privilege to sit in this seat. I grew up in Robstown, Texas, a very small South Texas town. And, you know, I struggled. I struggled with acceptance. I struggled to understand what it meant to be queer. I didn't have any possibility models. I didn't have anyone that I could actually lean on. And I was pulled out of the closet in high school before I was ready to, before I really knew what that meant. And that led to me being a high school dropout and dropping out of high school. And as you can imagine, that was a very hard life. So having to endure that reality, which is a reality of many LGBTQ plus people today, youth today, that was 30-something years ago, and it's still happening today. But now to sit in this seat and show what's possible and to give back and to show our youth that they can survive, and if we give them the support that they need, they can be here sitting one day as well, talking with you.
Let's put some numbers and stats around this. Research from a recent survey by the Trevor Project, it estimates that an LGBTQ plus young person attempts to take their life in the U.S. every 45 seconds. I mean, that is just devastating. What needs to be done to make this community feel safer?
Well, one, cultural competency, right? When we think about that our youth are in schools or they're with their counselors or churches, et cetera, their parents, we need to learn how to support our youth and talk with them about what they're experiencing. Don't try to change them. Don't tell them that they're wrong. They need love, support, and they need someone to talk with them and to listen to them. We need to put our arms around them. And most of all, they want to be loved and accepted, period. At its most fundamental level, youth want to be protected. And for me, as the adults in the room, that's what we're supposed to do. No matter if they're LGBTQ plus or not, we need to protect our youth, and they want to feel protected and safe.
The stats show overwhelmingly, all it takes is one person, one accepting person that can make a huge difference in the life of an LGBTQ plus person. How can people show support to young LGBTQ plus people to make them feel like things are okay?
Sure, absolutely. You know, one, wave your pride flag. Put your pride flag in your yard. Use their appropriate pronouns. It's not for you to understand their pronouns, but if they say that their pronouns are this, then use their pronouns. Talk with them about what they're feeling and understand their journey. And I think if we do that more, people and those youth will actually feel accepted. But we really have to sort of show those signs that we are allies and that you are an ally to make a youth feel safe.
James Black, great to have you with us. Congratulations on the new position. I know you're going to do a lot of good for so many young people, and this was an important conversation. If you or anyone you know is struggling, you can call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988.
Well, it's right there on your screen. Let's switch gears now and turn to a real-life hero. Reporter Gladys Batista from our NBC affiliate in Birmingham, Alabama, was there for a heartfelt reunion between a little girl and the woman who saved her life with a bone marrow transplant. Take a look.
Surrounded by medical staff.
These are the days that keep us going through the rough parts.
A tearful reunion between a bone marrow donor and her grateful recipient. This hug, a long time coming.
I feel like I just blacked out. I just couldn't stop crying, and she was crying and looking up at me. I was like, stop. Just kept coming. So exciting, crazy. It doesn't feel real.
In September 2022, Adam and Candace Cromer learned their 6-year-old daughter Sophie was diagnosed with aplastic anemia.
And it was severe. We did our own research and found the only curative option was to have a bone marrow transplant.
3 years after Macy Fusler signed up to be a donor, she learned she was a match for little Sophie.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot I did this. And I actually matched with somebody. So I was so nervous, really nervous. I called my dad and I was like, I don't know, what do I do? And then he was like, well, just pray about it, think about it. And I did, and I'm so glad I said yes.
Sophie got her bone marrow transplant a few months later in January of 2023. In the nearly 2 years since the successful procedure, her parents say she can finally focus on being a kid.
She wasn't allowed to do dance or anything physical because of the bruising and low platelet counts. And she started her first dance class this fall, and she's doing very well, loving it, back in school, back to herself.
And a part of herself is now bonded to Fusler, who encourages others to give the gift of life.
Don't even think twice. Do it. For sure.
Oh my goodness, what a sweet story. Our thanks to Gladys Batista for that report. Well, for more information on becoming a bone marrow donor or helping to find a cure, visit www. Here it is on your screen, nmdp.org. That's the National Marrow Donor Program.org. The timing of this story is just right because World Marrow Donor Day is coming up this Saturday.
And stories like that will encourage so many more people to get involved.
What an incredible woman.
All right, coming up, a Hollywood deal that could change the future of the film industry.
A top movie studio is partnering with an AI startup. More on the move that's raising concerns from Hollywood to Silicon Valley and beyond. This is Morning News Now.
Welcome back. Let's get to some financial headlines, starting with some news we told you about a little earlier. The Teamsters union weighing in, or not weighing in, on the race for the White House.
NBC's Savannah Hanau joins us with that and more. Good morning, Savannah.
Good morning, Savannah. Good morning, Jill. That is right. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters announcing it will not formally endorse a candidate in the 2024 presidential election, a break from the union's decades-long tradition of backing Democratic candidates. The Teamsters president had signaled in July that the union was open to endorsing Trump when he delivered a speech on the first night of the Republican National Convention. With 1.3 million members, the Teamsters union is one of the largest labor groups in the country. Meanwhile, General Motors is now offering adapters to help owners of electric vehicles use Tesla's supercharger network. Customers can buy the adapter from GM's vehicle brand mobile apps for $225. Ford announced a similar program earlier this year and began shipping adapters in March. And Walmart announcing its holiday deals days in October as consumers start shopping even earlier. The event runs from October 8th through the 13th, overlapping Amazon's second Prime Day this year on the 8th and the 9th. Walmart will also offer an inflation-free Thanksgiving meal at a lower price than last year for about $7 a person. It serves up to 10 and includes more than 24 favorite dishes. You can also gift the meal for pickup and delivery to neighbors, friends, and family, guys.
All right, Savannah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, one of the top studios in Hollywood is taking a big step into the world of artificial intelligence. They're inking a deal with one of its fastest growing startups.
Lionsgate is now teaming up with AI company Runway with plans to start using its tech in the production of movies and TV shows. But the move comes amid a major debate on how the entertainment industry can balance this new technology and protect copyrighted material.
We have our friend of the show, Sinead Bovell. She's a futurist and founder of the tech education company Way. She joins us now. Sinead, good morning. So, Lionsgate, they've got some pretty big franchises under its belt, right? Hunger Games, John Wick, Twilight, we've all heard of it. So what do we know so far about how this will actually change the production of future titles?
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me. And this is quite a historic moment. This is the first of its kind deal. I'll first kind of quickly address that there is a bit of a concern here, of course, around consent and artist rights. And I do have questions around whether artists were consented before their works was used to train this model. But in terms of AI in the production process and in the future of movie making and television, I do not doubt that AI will lead to some more capital efficient ways, as Lionsgate refers to in their announcement, to make TV and movies. But I think that's the wrong way of looking at AI in entertainment. And I think that is it's a short-sighted deal. Because when we think about the symbiotic relationship between technology and art, and they've always kind of co-created alongside one another, the real unlock is going to happen When artists are able to lean in and leverage AI on their own terms to create new types of content and entertainment altogether. We saw that with the internet, the rise of the creator economy. We saw that with the camera, the rise of movies. So entertainment companies, I think, are looking very short term. How can we drive profit? How can we quickly cut costs? And that's just not how art works. So I'm curious to see what this means in the long term. But of course, we can discuss artists' rights as well, because that is a huge part of this.
I mean, this comes on the heels of California Governor Gavin Newsom making a pretty symbolic move, visiting the SAG-AFTRA union to sign 2 bills into law, restricting the use of AI digital replicas of performers. Obviously, AI, huge part of the strikes against the big studios, both the writer's strike and the acting strike last year. So what does this mean potentially for actors?
Right. So Gavin Newsom's laws that have just come, I think they come into play in 2025, and they are helpful in the sense that they prevent things like digital replicas without consent. So a company can't film a movie and then create a digital twin of the actor and then go on to create content without that actor's consent. It wouldn't necessarily be as helpful in this case, because it doesn't seem as though the AI system would be used to replicate an existing piece of content, but instead to streamline and cut out aspects of the current production line and how the art is made. So this brings up all sorts of new questions. And again, I think perhaps a writer who is able to lean into AI to write their stories, they'll find ways to do that perhaps more quickly. Maybe they'll have more innovative ideas. But I really think the big unlock with AI and storytelling, and it will be helpful, is when artists can tell entirely new types of stories that we have yet to see. It's not trying to turn art into an assembly line and cut the costs. I think that's the wrong way.
It really just seems like such a fine line, Sinead. And after this deal was announced, you mentioned some things we heard from Lionsgate. Also, Vice Chair Michael Burns said, quote, "We view AI as a great tool for augmenting, enhancing, and supplementing our current operations." I think that statement on its own is reasonable enough, right? The way that you just described it could help a writer or something like that. But do you think, like, even we as a society yet have enough understanding to recognize that line when maybe this is going too far and it is eliminating sort of the human creative process rather than just enhancing it?
I think the real kind of blurred lines that we do understand as a society is the aspect of consent. I think we have to get clear on that, and we have to be able to answer those questions. People should at least be able to opt out of their works being used to train these models. And especially if they don't get access to them to benefit from them afterwards. So I think that's one thing that's quite clear as a society that we need to get to the bottom of. But in terms of the line between augmentation and enhancing and streamlining, I don't necessarily think we know how to navigate that entirely. And I still think the streamline aspect of it is a very short-sighted way. I think it has to be AI in the hands of artists on their terms to create new types of magic that doesn't exist yet.
Sinead Bovell, always a fascinating conversation with you. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, they blazed a trail all the way to space.
Up next, the special honors for 4 women who helped make the first moonwalk possible. This is Morning News Now.
What about a live show?
There you have it. We're a little more than a week out now from the first episode of Saturday Night Live season 50. Our parent company, NBC Universal, finally released the list of hosts and musical guests for the first 5 episodes. Actress and comedy icon Jean Smart, fresh off her latest big Emmy win, will be live from Studio 8H to host the season premiere, the first time ever for her. Aww. Plus, we've got some new and familiar faces. 3 young comedians are joining the cast this year: Ashley Padilla, Jane Wickline, and Emil Wakim. Chappell Roan and Michael Keaton, you might know him as Beetlejuice, they're also making appearances. And it doesn't stop there. Comedian Maya Rudolph says that she will revive her quirky yet timely impression of Vice President Kamala Harris ahead of the election. There's also a live primetime special on deck for next year. Got a lot to look forward to. You can catch all the antics on September 28th, a week from Saturday, live from New York and right here on NBC. I was talking with Ego Wodum recently. She says it's basically just going to be a year-long party celebrating
for the
50
50th.
years.
Oh my God, I remember the 40th was.
I know.
Which
feels like yesterday.
Also worked here then. It really does. It's so crazy. God, some big names there though, and so exciting for Jean Smart.
Yeah.
All right, finally this hour we are celebrating 4 female trailblazers who paved the way for NASA's space programs. Decades after their work made the very first moonwalk possible, these women were recognized with one of the nation's highest honors yesterday.
NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has their remarkable story.
For decades, their names were in anonymity, though their contributions were out of this world.
Their legacy will send us back to the moon.
On Capitol Hill, a congressional gold medal ceremony honoring the pioneering women of NASA from the 1930s to the 1970s who helped launch the space race, including 82-year-old Dr. Christine Darden.
Although we call them hidden figures, we shouldn't think of them merely as supporting characters in the American story of space exploration. They were the engineers and mathematicians who actually wrote the story itself.
Their story inspired a book. Then,
there's no mathematical formula for that.
An Academy Award-winning movie, Hidden Figures. Among them, 3 trailblazers honored posthumously: Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson.
To see the impact that she made on the world, I just wish she was here to see it.
Their work on the Apollo space program led to this.
It's one small step for man.
And as Johnson told us in 2016, John Glenn had even insisted she verify the computer's calculations before his first orbit around the Earth.
He knew that if I had done it, it was right.
Her daughter is in awe.
She would have said, "What's all the fuss about? I was just doing my job." Because she was a very humble, her work was important to her, and she did the best that she could.
A generation of women hidden no more. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News, Washington.
Great to see that long-deserved recognition for them. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, so the news continues right now. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, we are following a new wave of violence in Lebanon. Officials there say 25 people are dead, hundreds more injured after walkie-talkies exploded across the country yesterday. It comes just a day after Israel's coordinated pager attack targeting the militant group Hezbollah. That killed at least 12 people. What it all might mean for the growing threat of a wider war in the Middle East. Back home, a bold money move from the Federal Reserve, slashing interest rates by 0.5 percentage point. The first time that's happened since the pandemic. So what does that mean for America's economy going forward on both Wall Street and Main Street? We're digging into the numbers. We're also watching your health with an eye-opening new report on potential links between alcohol and cancer. What everyone, especially younger adults, need to know about lowering their risk. And later in the hour, we're going to bring you the journey of one fighter who went from a distinguished U.S. Army sergeant to one of the first transgender MMA athletes. Alana McLaughlin is here to discuss the documentary Unfightable. Looking forward to bringing you that conversation. Let's begin this hour in Lebanon, which is reeling from a new wave of attacks linked to those exploding communications devices.
Over the past 2 days, dozens of people have been killed and thousands left wounded when pagers and walkie-talkies detonated in a coordinated attack that was targeting the militant group Hezbollah. U.S. officials tell NBC News Israel was behind the operation. Israel has not commented. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons has the latest from the Lebanese capital, Beirut.
Hey there, good day to you. Yesterday was the deadliest day here in Lebanon since October 7th, and there is disbelief talking to people here that it could all be caused by something as simple as pagers and walkie-talkies. Meanwhile, we are hearing from the leader of Hezbollah his first reaction since the explosions. 2 days of explosions. Synchronized assassinations unlike anything witnessed here. Another wave of blasts targeting Iran-backed Hezbollah operatives. First, it was their pagers. Then yesterday, it was walkie-talkies blowing up. This explosion at a funeral for a Hezbollah member killed in the first wave. Lebanon's health ministry says at least 32 people now dead, including 2 children. and hospitals overwhelmed with almost 3,000 wounded.
Most of the injuries we had were eyes, hands, fingers, and the lower abdomen.
2 U.S. officials tell NBC News it is a vast, covert Israeli operation aimed at the group's personnel and their communications network. Israel not commenting. The exploding pages linked to a company in Hungary. Citing 3 intelligence officers, the New York Times reports the company was in fact an Israeli front, making the pages and secretly turning them into bombs. When NBC News contacted the firm, a woman denied making the pages, then hung up. Hezbollah relying on pages and walkie-talkies after its leader ordered members to stop using smartphones, believing they were vulnerable to Israeli hacking. After a year of skirmishing, Israel and Hezbollah seem as close to conflict as ever. The Israeli defense minister saying the war has entered a new phase, with troops and resources shifting from the fight against Hamas in Gaza to Israel's northern border, where Hezbollah continues to aim its rockets. In some of the videos of those explosions, you do see terrified children close by, and there is criticism today from some international organizations as to what the U.S. knew. 2 U.S. officials tell NBC News Israel told the U.S. yesterday they were going to do something in Lebanon, but they did not give any details.
All right, Keir, thank you so much.
Let's talk more about this with NBC News senior national security and intelligence analyst and former CIA director John Brennan. Director, good to have you with us. I want to start by asking you about the way these attacks were carried out through these exploding devices. Can you think of anything like this happening in recent times? I mean, where does the U.S. stand on turning everyday civilian objects like this into weapons?
Well, intelligence and security services worldwide have frequently tried to get into supply chains to compromise the materials that are being sent out to various groups or adversaries. Usually it's for collection or surveillance purposes so that they can listen in on conversations or something along those lines. There have been times when these devices have been used to kill individuals. What's so unprecedented about this Israeli operation is the scale, in terms of thousands of pagers and many, many walkie-talkies that were used to simultaneously detonate on the individuals who are carrying them. So it just demonstrates the reach that the Israeli security and intelligence services have. The Israelis are very, very technically proficient, and they're second to none in terms of the creativity that they bring to these covert operations. So this was, from their perspective, I'm sure just a very effective, successful operation.
Many believe that these attacks could be a prelude to a bigger military operation. To put it as Keir just said, he said Israel and Hezbollah, they're as close as ever to conflict. Is a wider war with Hezbollah now inevitable, and how significant would that be given what's already going on in the region and what Israel is already fighting in Gaza?
Well, I certainly think that a lot depends on how Hezbollah is going to respond to this latest Israeli action, whether or not they're going to retaliate across the border into Israel with rockets, missiles, whether they're going to launch some terrorist attacks outside of the region against Israeli diplomats or facilities or Jewish targets. So it could lead to a spiraling of that, escalating violence on both sides. I don't think war is inevitable, but if, in fact, this is something that Hezbollah and Israel decide to get into, Iran, I think, would become heavily involved because Hezbollah is their main proxy in the region, and they've provided support to Hezbollah over the years. And so I can see Iran standing on the sidelines if Hezbollah and Israel were to get into a major war.
We know Secretary Blinken was in Egypt yesterday, part of this ongoing push for a ceasefire deal. Does what's happening in Lebanon right now have an impact on the efforts to try and get this elusive deal?
Well, I think it shows that Netanyahu is pursuing these very aggressive policies, whether it be against Hamas in Gaza or Hezbollah in Lebanon. And it's clear that Netanyahu has not tried to really seek a ceasefire that would get the hostages released. So I think these latest operations by Israel make it less likely that there's going to be a ceasefire deal. However, maybe Netanyahu felt that he had to lash out against Hezbollah as a way to balance maybe an agreement with a ceasefire deal in Gaza with Hamas. But again, the situation is very dynamic. A lot depends on how the actors and the players are going to respond to the events over the last 72 hours.
All right, former CIA Director John Brennan, appreciate your expertise this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Now let's get to that big decision from the Federal Reserve. For the first time in more than 4 years, the Fed announced its much anticipated rate cut.
But the announcement went further than some experts expected. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans joins us now to break it all down.
Hi, Christine. Good morning. Thanks for being here. So the Fed lowered its key interest rate by 0.5 percentage point. We were just talking about this yesterday. How big of a deal is that? What does it mean for the average consumer? How surprised were you based on our conversation?
Look, there was a lot of drama around this rate cut, right? It was either going to be a 25 basis point rate cut, the first in several years, or something a little bit bigger, 50. So this is a jolt. This sends a strong message. There was a lot of debate. A lot of smart people thought it'd be 50. A lot of smart people thought it'd be 25. And I haven't seen that kind of drama around a rate cut in an awful long time. But what it tells you is the Fed is less concerned about inflation. The Fed chief signaling that, inflation is going in the right direction. But they're forecasting the unemployment rate to start rising and continue to rise in months ahead. So they don't want that to get out of control. So what they're doing, a big rate cut here to try to, give a buffer to the job market.
Bottom line, this is just the first of what we presume will be at least a few, if not many, rate cuts?
Absolutely. If you look, there's more rate cuts for this year and more rate cuts for next year and more rate cuts for the year after that. If you look at what the Fed's sort of targets are, a lot can change, of course. And we have seen expectations for what the economy is going to do over the past couple of years have just defied gravity, right? They really have. The president this morning is going to give us a speech on the economy and essentially saying that we have inflation falling and interest rates falling, and that's a good thing for American families. But no one's declaring victory yet. The Fed really kind of on high alert about still on inflation, but more so on the job market.
So what does this mean for you at home? Are you hearing this? It's like, yes, there's relief soon, not soon. Should you buy the house?
Yesterday, after the Fed cut rates, I went on my favorite mortgage website, and it had crashed because everyone was looking to see what was happening to mortgage rates. So mortgage rates are already, right, mortgage rates are already declining. They'll probably continue to decline. They're just above 6% right now. If you bought a home last December, for example, you probably had a mortgage at 8.1%. So that's already 2 points of improvement. So you can start thinking about refinancing if you're in that territory. Credit card numbers, interest rates, they'll probably be slower to fall. Also, car loans, those have all gone up, their interest rates. Those will start to fall as well, but probably more slowly. But if you're in the housing market, that's where you'll first feel all of this.
Is it just going to be nuts in early 2025, the housing market? I mean, is it going to be like Game of Thrones to try and get the house you want?
It's a good question because
it already felt like that.
There's just not a lot of inventory. There aren't a lot of houses for sale. So one thing that could happen, ironically, is if rates start to fall and more people go in there and try to buy a home, it could actually keep pushing up prices because you have all this competition for houses. So Game of Thrones, yeah, I would say so.
But we also could see people decide to sell, right? Because now they can go buy.
Absolutely. So we just don't know. Maybe it'll loosen things up. The housing market has been sticky, right? And if I'm sure if you know anybody who's been trying to buy a house, it's been very, very difficult to find something that you can afford, right? And that you're not fighting against people who are paying cash. So maybe that'll be better in the spring selling season. We'll see.
Christine, you mentioned, just give us a quick economics lesson, because I think we keep on hearing all these numbers. Inflation, job market, and then, of course, this interest rate's a big one. Why is this interest rate falling a buffer for the job market?
Here's why. Because when companies are paying less interest on their debt, they have more money to build a factory, to hire some people, to invest in something else that can lead to jobs. So when you have interest rates falling, that frees up money in the budget, the family budget, the company budget, to invest in other things, including people.
There you go. Christine Romans, thank you so much.
Another busy day today for the presidential nominees. Vice President Harris is heading to Michigan today for an event with Oprah Winfrey, just days after former President Trump held a town hall in the battleground state. Mr. Trump will hold campaign events today in Washington after rallying with supporters on Long Island in New York last night. Both candidates hoping to win over undecided voters, but neither is getting an endorsement from the Teamsters union. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander joins us now with the latest on the campaigns. Peter, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning to you. First, in that conversation with Christine, that long-awaited cut in interest rates could benefit Vice President Harris's campaign as evidence that the long battle with inflation is winding down. But former President Trump on that matter is arguing that it just shows the economy is very bad. He is questioning whether the Fed's move is political, even though, of course, he appointed the Fed chair. All of it as Harris and Trump, as you know, look to motivate their supporters on the road again today. Overnight, former President Trump joking about the apparent assassination attempt at his golf course.
Golf is a very dangerous game.
It really is. On Fox News, Trump also touting a non-endorsement. The Teamsters declining to back either Trump or Vice President Harris yesterday. The first time since 1996, the union, one of the nation's largest, has opted against throwing its support behind the Democratic nominee.
That was sort of a big event. Nobody's ever expected a thing like that to happen.
The Harris campaign saying Teamsters locals across the country have already endorsed her, alongside the overwhelming majority of organized labor. Harris also pushing back against a major Trump campaign theme, his restrictive immigration policies, speaking to Latino lawmakers.
They have pledged to carry out the largest deportation, a mass deportation in American history. How's that going to happen? Massive raids? Massive detention camps? What are they talking about?
It comes as Trump is pledging to visit Springfield, Ohio, which has been a flashpoint in the immigration debate.
I'm going to go there in the next 2 weeks. You may never see me again, but that's okay.
After Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance spread baseless claims about Haitian immigrants there eating pets. Now, officials in Ohio say there have been multiple threats in Springfield, including at schools. The mayor earlier this week saying a Trump visit would be a strain on resources. The Republican governor visiting Springfield to show support after those bomb threats.
Resources are really stretched here. But if President Trump makes that decision to come here, he will be welcome here.
Democrats have condemned Trump's rhetoric about immigrants, including President Biden yesterday.
We don't demonize immigrants. We don't single them out for attacks. We're a nation of immigrants, and that's why we're so damn strong.
And looking ahead to today, Harris returns, as you know, to the key swing state of Michigan for that evening event with the queen of daytime TV, Oprah Winfrey, who endorsed Harris at last month's Democratic convention. Trump is scheduled to speak to a group of prominent Jewish supporters here in D.C. tonight. Joe, back to you.
All right, Peter, thank you.
Well, big tech was once again in the spotlight on Capitol Hill yesterday. Top executives from Meta, Microsoft, and then Google's parent company called Alphabet, they testified before members of the Senate Intelligence Committee about what they are doing to try to identify and disrupt foreign influence ahead of the upcoming presidential election.
The hearing was chaired by Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, who urged the companies to do more. Here's some of what Microsoft's President Brad Smith told lawmakers.
There is a potential moment of peril ahead. Today we are 48 days away from this election, as you said, Chairman Warner. The most perilous moment will come, I think, 48 hours before the election.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us with the latest on this. He's been covering it. Hey, Ryan, good morning. So what are tech companies say they are doing to prepare for these upcoming few weeks we really have left, these crucial weeks headed to the election? What are they doing about this disinformation?
Well, it was fascinating to listen to some of these tech giants talk about how they're trying to combat misinformation from spreading on their platforms. And one of the big things that they were worried about in the 2024 election was these bad actors using artificial intelligence to peddle false claims, use deep fakes and other things to try and interfere in the election. And these tech companies say they're actually using AI to their advantage to try and, to try and figure out where there is misinformation or fake sites or things along those lines so that they can capture it quickly and prevent it from being pushed out to these wide audiences. The problem is it comes so quickly that it's difficult to rein it in. The representative from Microsoft, though, said during the testimony yesterday that that morning their company had discovered a deep fake of Kamala Harris that had started to spread around the internet. They were able to capture it, take it down, and prevent it from getting any further. So it is, in many ways, like trying to, empty the ocean with a teaspoon. But they do believe that they're making progress and that things are much better than they were in 2016 and in 2020. But it's still a big problem they have to confront.
You know, Ryan, earlier this week, Meta announced it's banning the Russian state media news outlet RT. This comes after the Biden administration accused the outlet of acting as an arm of Moscow's spy agencies. Is this the kind of thing we're going to see more of as we get closer to Election Day?
I think it's very possible, Joe. But, the big difference between how you see these social media companies confronting this era of misinformation is that there's not so much worried about the domestic efforts that people are doing. You know, there are obviously a lot of outlets within the United States that are peddling false information or information that's not completely correct. And that's really a freedom of speech issue. And Meta in particular dealt with the situation with Hunter Biden's laptop, where they were encouraged by the administration and intelligence officials to try and tamper down the spread of that information around the laptop during the 2020 election. And the laptop turned out to be somewhat of an accurate piece of information. So what they are now focusing on is foreign adversaries. And when they see actors from countries like Iran, China, and Russia trying to peddle false information, and they are from specific outlets like RT and others, that's where they're really going to try and rein it in. It's one thing for Americans to go back and forth on these platforms. It's another thing when you see a foreign adversary come into the conversation, because oftentimes it's not in support of one candidate or another. It's just to sow dissension among the American people and to try and undermine the faith in election integrity.
Ryan, we mentioned this is Meta, Alphabet, Microsoft. That's not a comprehensive list of tech companies or even social media companies, notably Elon Musk's X. No executive was at Wednesday's hearing from them. Are there concerns that if only some tech companies are participating in this conversation and actively doing work to try to prevent this, that it really just still leaves that opening for disinformation? Like if, let's say, it's off Facebook, it's off Instagram because those are Meta companies, but on X, a deep fake is spreading like wildfire. How much good can these conversations do?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Savannah. There was no one there from Telegram, no one there from Discord, but the committee was specifically concerned about X, of course, formerly known as Twitter, because they made specific outreach to Elon Musk's company to ask them to be there. And Chairman Mark Warner told me that he views X as being the most egregious offender of the spread of misinformation, and that they've actually gotten worse than they were in 2016 and 2020. And so that's part of the problem that Congress has dealt with for a long time when it comes to how quickly technology changes and improves. When you are able to try and prevent it or rein it in, and one platform, another platform pops up with the ability to spread misinformation rapidly. So this is a problem that is continuing to go ongoing. But one of the big things that the committee hoped to do yesterday was educate the public on this. Yes, there's a responsibility from the tech companies for sure, but there's also responsibility for the people that are consuming this information, the eventual voters. And this was as much about trying to inform voters to be very skeptical of the things that they read on the internet, whatever platform they may come from, and do their own independent research to make sure that what they're reading is actually accurate. Savannah and Joe.
Brian Nobles, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Time now for your morning news now weather. Looks like a soggy day today from the Midwest to New England.
We've got Angie Lassman to tell us the latest. I think there's some sunshine in this forecast, though, as well. Angie, good morning.
There is. Good morning, guys. It's not all bad news, but we do have a couple of spots that I want folks to be aware of here, especially this morning up and down the East Coast. We've got plenty of flood advisories in effect. It's not all because we're dealing with some rain. It also is because we've got high tides, we've got a full moon, and that really strong onshore flow coming in. So it's not hard for us to see some inundation up to 2 feet up and down really the East Coast. You can see some of the spots that are included in that: Atlantic City, Norfolk, stretching down to Cape Hatteras and points south into the Carolinas and even as far south as Florida. So we'll watch for that through the day today. We're also keeping a close eye on this area of low pressure that just kind of is meandering offshore. This is going to be something that sits there for the next couple of days, so we'll have a few chances to see some of the shower activity move in. But right now, it's really just parts of coastal Massachusetts that are dealing with the rain. We'll see some of that work its way in as we get into the later parts of the day, and then eventually as we get into tomorrow, the system will start to pull away. We're not completely done with the rain chances. As it pulls away, though, notice we'll still be seeing some of that shower activity kind of working its way in. Places like New England along the coast and Long Island will still have some rain chances for your Friday, but then we'll see some major improvements just in time for the weekend. Into the middle of the country, where we've got some strong storms possible. Cold front is working its way to the east. It's going to spark up some potential strong to severe storms later today. We've got Duluth, Minneapolis, Des Moines, Kansas City, all included in this. That risk, it's expansive, includes 10 million people, but the hail and the wind gusts are going to be our main threats. The good news is the tornado threat is low, but again, we can't rule out a couple of those as we get through the afternoon and also this evening. Big picture look of the weekend. It's almost Friday. We've got some nice conditions to talk about. Savannah mentioned it. It's not all bad news. We've got really sunny and mild conditions set up for out west on Friday as we wrap up our work week. The Midwest is going to to be much warmer than normal. These aren't the typical temperatures you'd see in September, definitely not late September. We're 90s, high 80s across much of that region through at least the next couple of days. So you'll notice it feels warmer than normal. Along the southeast, too, that'll be something that we watch to happen on Saturday. Notice these temperatures along the Gulf Coast, low 90s. So we're not seeing a whole lot of cooling trends for that region over the next couple of days. But we do have the continued mild conditions up and down the West Coast. Those strong storms, we're going to watch them be centered across the middle of the country for your Saturday plans. So it might be a good idea to have some indoor plans for folks that live in that region. And that same advice goes for our friends from the Great Lakes down to the Central Plains for your Sunday. If you're looking for the nice weather, it's really most of the East Coast. We'll have plenty of sunshine. Temperatures in some spots will even be quite mild. We'll see the 70s in parts of the Northeast, 80s and 90s across the Southeast. So it'll still be a little warm for this time of year in some spots, but plenty of sunshine out west, too. It's just those storms that'll be centered across parts of the middle of the country that we'll have to watch for.
All right, Andrew Lastman, thank you so much. Of course. There's much more to come on Morning News Now. Later in the hour, the natural alternatives to weight loss drugs like Ozempic, they're going viral. But do they work? And importantly, are they safe?
But first, after the break, Diddy Combs denied bail for a second time. What's next for the embattled hip-hop mogul as he awaits trial here in New York? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's get to the latest on Diddy Combs and the indictment here. The music mogul will remain behind bars indefinitely after a federal judge denied a second request from his lawyers to release him on bail.
NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas has been following this story for us and joins us with the latest. Chloe, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Combs is now behind bars at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Now, this is a notorious federal lockup known for its tough conditions that has also housed other celebrity inmates, including R. Kelly, Michael Cohen, and Ghislaine Maxwell. Once one of the most powerful men in the music industry, Combs is now behind bars awaiting trial. This morning, embattled music mogul Diddy Combs will remain behind bars on charges that include sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy after a second judge overseeing his federal criminal case denied him bond once again.
The fight continues. We're not giving up by a long shot.
Outside the New York City courthouse, his lawyer defiant.
He believes he's innocent. I believe he's innocent. And we're going to fight this case with all of our might until we don't have to fight any longer.
The judge ruling the bail package presented by Combs' lawyer was insufficient, siding with prosecutors who called Combs a threat to society, adding there is no condition that would assure that the rapper would not obstruct justice. A major topic of discussion ahead of the ruling, this troubled 2016 video that shows Combs brutally beating his then-girlfriend, singer Cassie, who prosecutors say was attempting to escape from one of Combs' so-called freak-offs, elaborated coerced sex parties that he often recorded. Combs' lawyer laying out his defense in court, arguing that the worst thing his client has done was on the videotape, adding that the two had loved each other, in which the judge responded, "What's love got to do with that?" calling the video disturbing.
Diddy's defense team was always the underdog in this bail argument, and that's because of the crime of human trafficking actually creates a presumption that the defendant should be detained.
In its bail proposal, Combs' legal team pointing out he surrendered his passport, voluntarily relocated to New York ahead of his arrest, is attempting to sell his plane, and hired private security to monitor Combs 24/7. However, prosecutors, who were adamant Combs remain in custody, pointed to what they describe as a massive amount of evidence, including text messages read in court from women accusing Combs of physical and sexual violence that went on for decades, and vast efforts to cover it up, adding witnesses universally share an extreme fear of the defendant. So far, no trial date has been set, but a status conference hearing is scheduled for October 9th. Now, federal authorities also say they're not done with their investigation, urging anyone with additional information to come forward. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all of these charges.
All right, so much more to come. We know you'll stay on it. Chloe, thank you so much.
International news now. Ukraine says it destroyed a Russian arms depot in an overnight drone attack.
NBC News international correspondent Claudia Lavanga joins us from Rome with that news and more. Hey, Claudia, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Well, that's right. According to a source within the Ukrainian Secret Service who spoke to CNN, a Ukrainian drone attack has destroyed overnight an ammunition warehouse inside Russia. Now, the attack allegedly targeted a warehouse storing Iskander missile systems in the city of Toropets, about 300 miles from Ukraine's border and 350 miles from Moscow. Local authorities in Russia said large fires broke from the debris of drones shot down by air defenses and ordered a partial evacuation of the area, but did not comment on claims that a weapons warehouse was destroyed. Let's go to Spain now, where Venezuela's opposition candidate Edmundo González posted a video message on X saying he was forced to recognize Nicolas Maduro as the winner of the presidential elections in July. In the video message, González said Maduro's aides told him to sign a letter in which he recognized Maduro's victory or deal with the consequences. After the election, González hid in the Spanish embassy in Caracas and recently moved to Spain, where he is being granted asylum. And let's end this tour of the world in India, where voters are heading to the polls for the first provincial election in decades in the disputed region of Jammu and Kashmir. The region has been at the center of a dispute with Pakistan since 1947, and the two countries have been fighting two wars over it. Until 2019, Jammu and Kashmir had a special status of partial autonomy, then revoked by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. The contest is between parties promising to restore that special status and the BJP, India's largest political party, which has promised development and a permanent end to militia violence. Back to you guys.
All right, Claudio, thank you so much. We are always watching your health here on Morning News Now. And after the break, we're going to have more on the emerging weight loss trend that is people ditching those popular drugs like Ozempic for natural alternatives. But do they work and are they safe? We're going to dig into it.
But first, though, an alarming new report on the potential link between alcohol and certain types of cancer. What young people especially need to hear this morning. Stay with us. We are back now with a look at the biggest findings from a brand new report on cancer in the U.S. The American Association for Cancer Research found that rates of some cancers have been increasing among adults, specifically under 50, and alcohol use may be one factor driving the trend.
The report also says alcohol is just one piece of the full picture, given that 40% of all cancers are associated with what are known as modifiable risk factors.
NBC News medical contributor Dr. Vin Gupta joins us with more. Dr. Gupta, good morning. Certainly concerning. You hear some of those numbers, the age ranges, and then you think about alcohol. Let's start with the rise in some of these cancers in young people and this possible link in particular. What do people need to know?
Well, what it appears is that alcohol is an independent risk factor for all forms of gastrointestinal cancers, so esophagus all the way down. And this is a difference in how we've been talking about alcohol for the last 30 years in medicine, where there's been this notion that low doses of, say, red wine, 1 or 2 glasses, moderate drinking, could actually be beneficial to the heart. And now these studies are actually saying there's no amount that's safe. And that actually we're seeing that this might be portending this incidence, this increased incidence of gastrointestinal cancers in young people.
This report estimates that by the end of 2024, more than 2 million new cases of cancer will be diagnosed in the U.S. this year. That just feels like a staggering number. In addition to alcohol, there are other changes people can do to lower their risks. Talk about what some of those are.
Absolutely. So, moderation is key here. So really there's a dose response. The more you drink, the greater the risk. But it's important to live a healthy lifestyle. So all the things, Joe, that we always talk about, healthy weight. Alcohol actually increases your risk of being overweight, and so there's a direct correlation. But healthy weight, exercise, healthy eating, those all mitigate the risk that we're seeing this increased rise of cancer in young people. I should also note we're seeing an increased incidence of cancer, so that it's being diagnosed more in younger people, but they're actually living longer because we have better treatment. So it's an ironic twist.
Do you think as we continue to get studies, this is not the first conversation we've had on this show about the age of cancer sort of shifting, will screening recommendations shift? Will we start to see people be recommended for colonoscopies, for mammography younger?
I think so. And so we're seeing better screening tools, frankly. Savannah, we've seen a blood test now for colorectal cancer. Much easier than a colonoscopy. Nobody really wants to get a colonoscopy, but they do it because it's important. We saw that age come down to 45 from 50 just a few years ago. Mammography, as the age of recommended screening, has decreased all the way to 40. So yes, I think this is going to be a combination of we're probably going to start recommending these screening tools at younger ages, given what we're finding. And there's better screening tools.
And hopefully insurance is covering them.
And insurance will cover it.
I think a lot of people might automatically think of like the grandparent in their life who's like, I had a martini a day, and I've, you know what I mean? They've never been healthy. I realize that everyone's different. But I mean, when they hear that story and then they see this research, how do you put that into context?
Didn't we even say that about Queen Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think everybody's different. Unfortunately, genetics is the biggest driver, but then these are modifiable risk factors, accounting for 40% of your risk. The other 60% is genetics. And so, Joe, exactly to your point, how one person tolerates a glass of wine or martini every single day might be different from the next person. Moderation is key.
I do also want to note some good news here. This particular report that we're talking about, it also showed that deaths from cancer have dropped significantly over the past 3 decades. 33%, more than 33% actually is the stat there. Why is that? How are we improving in that way?
Well, so one thing is we're screening now. To your point earlier, we're screening at younger ages. That means we're catching disease at an earlier stage. We're starting treatment, Savannah, at an earlier age. We're able to basically allow people to live longer once they are actually diagnosed. So that's why cancer-related deaths have declined, even though we're detecting more, probably because we're doing it at an earlier stage.
Dr. Van Gupta, always great to see you. Really important information this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Sticking with health, millions of Americans are now using weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, but there's also been a rise in less expensive and natural alternatives. The question, do they work? More importantly, are they safe? NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa joins us now with more on this. Emily, good morning.
Hey, guys. Good morning to you. You know, it's easy to see the appeal of these weight loss supplements, right? They're oftentimes more accessible and affordable than the blockbuster medications like Wegovy and Ozempic. But doctors are urging people looking to shed pounds to press pause before immediately pressing purchase.
Or residents or fellows.
As skyrocketing demand pushes weight loss injectables out of reach for some,
the Ozempic shortage saga continues.
More companies are dropping cheaper alternatives that have taken on the nickname Nature's Ozempic.
Nature's Ozempic Day 2 Update Berberine. I am obsessed.
Weight loss supplements now range from capsules with berberine to brightly colored gummies and drink mixes infused with oatmeal and tea. The latest on the scene from Kourtney Kardashian Barker's wellness brand, Lemmy.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment.
GLP-1 Daily uses ingredients that the company says studies show can reduce hunger and cravings, decrease fat and weight, and increase GLP-1 levels, the appetite-suppressing hormone made famous by game-changing medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. A recent survey shows 1 in 8 adults in the U.S. have used a GLP-1 drug at some point. Among them, a growing cohort of celebrities.
Weight health is a very complex issue for everybody.
While those prescribed and extensively researched drugs mimic GLP-1, Dr. Hans Schmidt points out these emerging supplements claim to promote natural production of the hormone with far less testing.
I don't think that they are anywhere near the strength of the injectable. If you could just go buy a supplement and lose 20 or 30, 40 pounds, you couldn't hear the end of it. It would be all over the place, but they're not.
Name brand drugs can run $1,000 a month without insurance. So Lemmy's $72 a month price point, touting no side effects, has some eager to give it a shot, writing on Instagram, "I got mine," and buying them right now. Though Dr. Schmidt cautions lifestyle changes and a high-fiber diet, which also stimulates GLP-1 production, would likely be more effective.
And the FDA recommends always talking to a medical expert before taking a dietary supplement. Remember, the agency does not actually approve supplements for effectiveness or safety before they hit the market. Joe?
All right, Emily, thank you so much. Appreciate that report.
All right, coming up, she is an inspiration both in the octagon and outside of it.
After the break, our conversation with Alana McLaughlin, one of the MMA's first transgender fighters, on her new documentary. That is next on Morning News Now.
Welcome back. Let's get to the latest read on unemployment just out this morning.
Yeah, CNBC's Savannah Hanau joins us with the new numbers and some other money news. Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Savannah. Good morning to you. Yeah, we are just getting a fresh snapshot on the state of the U.S. economy and the job market. Less than a day after the Federal Reserve cut interest rates for the first time in 4 years, Weekly jobless claims coming in at 219,000. That is way, way below an estimated 225,000 by economists. That's the lowest level in 4 months. All right, T-Mobile is partnering with OpenAI to build a platform to help the company gain and keep customers. It will collect data from customer interactions for subscribers who use T-Mobile's T-Life app. It combines several existing services, such as managing your bill and retail deals through a single portal. And Lego is teaming up with Formula One to a multi-year partnership that starts next year for the sport's 75th anniversary. It will include fan zone activities at Grand Prix races around the world, along with digital content and new product launches featuring teams and drivers. Lego already has a long partnership with McLaren and recently collaborated on a life-size drivable Lego car that Formula One driver Lando Norris took for a lap around the track earlier this month. More details are expected before the first Grand Prix championship race in Australia next March, guys.
Ooh, I love me some Lando Norris.
Cool.
That is very cool.
Me too. Me too.
Silvana, thanks so much.
Sure.
All right, let's take a look now at a groundbreaking MMA fighter who's using her powerful voice and punches to break down the ongoing barriers for transgender athletes. In the brand new documentary titled Unfightable, Alana McLaughlin gives an up-close perspective on her inspiring journey of going from a distinguished U.S. Army Special Forces sergeant to one of the first transgender fighters in professional mixed martial arts. And we are lucky to be joined in studio by the one and only trans activist and MMA fighter, Alana McLaughlin. Thank you so much for joining us. It is good to have you with us to talk about this. The documentary has a limited release here in New York right now. Talk about why it was so important to do this project, and maybe describe to people why it's called Unfightable, because part of it is this journey to actually find someone who wants to fight you, right?
Yeah, so it's called Unfightable because of the difficulty not only in finding me an opponent, but in finding a training camp. I think it's very important for the movie to be out right now because of the kind of moral panic around trans people right now. We all saw what happened with the Olympics with cisgender athletes that were not even trans, and it was still enough to, incite a lot of fear.
That was an example of a boxer who there was bad information put out there. People accused the boxer of being transgender when they weren't. When you saw that, what was your reaction to that? What does that tell us about what we need to do to just, when it comes as far as learning information, as far as just becoming better educated, right?
Well, I feel like people need to maybe take a breath and take a moment to confirm information, first of all, but then, even the idea that there's something wrong with being transgender or that trans people don't belong is, it's very dehumanizing.
We talk about trans in sports as just been a lightning rod issue in recent years, and oftentimes people might think of a sport like racing or a sport like swimming, and then here you are in a combat sport. And for those out there who think that's a step too far, I can't support that, what do you say to people like that to help them understand your story and why you want to be a part of MMA?
I would ask them to sort of maybe beware of propaganda, because when you look at the science behind it, there is no reason to exclude trans women. Like, we're statistically underrepresented in sports, and there's become sort of a panicked narrative about us dominating everything, but there just are very few transgender athletes. If I want to fight another trans woman, I'm only the second ever openly trans MMA fighter. So,
how many fights have you had in your career?
Just the one.
Just one?
Because I'm apparently unfightable.
And to those, and the documentary gives voice to some people who explain why they feel it would be unfair. How do you respond to that?
Angrily. To be honest, it might be best to just watch the documentary and see. I objected to some of those voices being included, but I think it's probably best that they were, just so people understand, and put a human face on, not only trans people, but our detractors. It's difficult for me to, kind of be neutral on the issue.
Are you still optimistic that you'll be able to have more fights in the future?
I am. Every athlete kind of has an expiration date, but I would very much like to have another fight, and I'm actively pursuing one, fingers crossed.
Talk a little bit about your history and your experience in the military. Did that play a major role in just how it shaped you and your dream of wanting to be in the MMA?
It definitely did. When I was in the Army, I kind of used MMA as, it felt like it was relevant to the job. When you're a soldier, fighting is it's the thing you do. It's a different context, a different type of fight. But, my military experience definitely, played a factor.
What is the biggest message you hope people get from watching this documentary? What conversations do you hope it sparks?
Ultimately, I would just like people to recognize that trans people are people, and some people fight. Some people are in beauty competitions and play chess, and I feel like we shouldn't be excluded from any of these spaces. So ultimately, I'd like people to be inspired and maybe resilient. But yeah.
Are there other ways you hope to still be involved with fighting? Maybe if you're not in the ring going head to head with someone, or is that not going to be fulfilling enough
for me, that is kind of the primary drive. If I'm going to be involved with fighting, I want to be a fighter.
Yeah. That's understandable. What, real quick, do you think the biggest misconception people have about you and your story?
I think they are angry at who they imagine me to be. And I think this documentary might give them a little more insight into where I come from and who I am as a person.
Who are you?
I'm Lady Farrell.
Lady Farrell, that is your name. All right. It is a pleasure to have you with us, Alana McCall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. We really appreciate your time, and hopefully folks will check out the movie Unfightable, which is out right now. Savannah?
Well, now let's get to a life-saving scene in Michigan. Last week, traffic cameras captured the heroic moment a deputy climbed through the window of a moving car to rescue a driver who was having a medical emergency. Reporter Sean Leif from our affiliate station in Detroit, Michigan, has the details.
As far as stopping that vehicle any other way, I didn't have any other ideas.
That is Macomb County Sheriff's Deputy Nicole Myron, and you can see she's a small person but big, on guts and quick decision-making. It's all on video. Last week, an SUV slowly weaving down Gratiot in Mount Clemens. Its driver, he was in a daze, hands at his side, not on the wheel. He was unresponsive. He was going to get hurt or hurt someone else. Myron told her partner, Deputy Anthony Gross, to get their SUV close, and then she does this ninja Spider-Man move. From Sheriff's SUV over the driver in crisis into the passenger seat to stop the SUV.
What did you think to do that?
Okay, so before that, I'm thinking of all the options we have. I mean, there's not many. At that point, I let him know. I'm like, I'm going to go through my partner. I let him know I'm going to go through the window, and that's what I did. The front window. I jumped right over him in the front window.
Just thought I got to get as close as I can. That way she can make the move over to his vehicle.
You didn't question it? Like, okay, she's going to jump.
She had that idea. I was going to trust her with it.
When you watched it, what did you think?
Well, I'm thinking what's going through their mind, but, then I'm kind of going back and saying, you know what, they saw that they had a problem. They came up with a plan. They executed the plan. And everything worked.
Luckily, I'm a smaller person, so it worked out in my favor.
Superhero type stuff.
People asking for autographs, yeah.
Did you give an autograph?
I have not given. No, it's my partner's being really funny.
Way to go. Yeah. Excellent work.
Just an incredible story. Our thanks to Sean Leif for that report.
All right, coming up, get ready for your daily dose of nostalgia this morning.
Which of your favorite toys will be immortalized in the Toy Hall of Fame this year? We've got a sneak peek at the finalists up next. Welcome back. 12 finalists are going head-to-head for a spot in the coveted Toy Hall of Fame. There are a ton of familiar favorites on this list. Here's a picture. Hopefuls include Apples to Apples. That's a party game. Might be a little early for that one, in my opinion. The classic trampoline. Personally, I'm not sure if that's a toy, but I do love one. The popular My Little Pony figures also made the cut for the 7th time, but they haven't actually made it into the Hall of Fame. I feel like they deserve it. Here's one, balloons. They're floating their way onto this list, although is that more of a decoration than a toy? You can vote for your favorites online through next Wednesday, September 25th. Joe's not open to talk.
I can't comment. I may or may not have a role in the selection process.
I really wish that you could give me your opinions on balloons, because
I can't
balloons
give
are
any
not
opinions.
toys. Balloons are decorations.
No opinions here. All right. Finally this hour, there is a sneaky, slithery fight happening down in Florida. Hundreds of hunters are racing to stop an invasive species of snakes. One wildlife expert says Burmese pythons have eaten a majority of the mammals that live in the Everglades. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra shows us how they wrangle these reptiles.
The invasive, elusive, and sometimes massive Burmese pythons are no match for hunter Donna Khalil.
One of the very last pythons I caught was 12 foot 1 inch.
The leader of the Everglade Avengers and professional python removal specialist was one of 800 who flocked to Florida for this year's Python Challenge.
Difficult to catch because they're very quick. So you have to be really careful. Don't scare it away before you can come up to it and catch it right behind the head and wrestle it out of the swamp.
Amateur and pro competitors removed 195 Burmese pythons from the wild over the course of 10 days. Khalil caught 19 of them, just one shy of this year's crowned champion, Ronald Kiger, who took home the $10,000 grand prize. But the yearly competition isn't all about the glory or the money. It's a race to humanly catch as many pythons as possible.
Just like the old days.
A mission that biologist and wildlife conservationist Jeff Corwin says is critical.
They have no native predators. They have totally overtaken this ecosystem. They completely outcompete the native wildlife. They either push it out or they eat it to extinction. 90% of the mammals that live in the Everglades have been eaten by pythons.
The non-venomous snakes were first brought to the U.S. as exotic pets in the 70s, according to biologists. But those pets, when they got too big, eventually escaped or were released by their owners into the Everglades, and they reproduced quickly.
A female, she can have upwards to 40 to 70 offspring in one sitting. So from one snake, you can get hundreds of thousands of individual snakes that have this impact on this incredibly important ecosystem.
Sometimes holding the tail will help keep them from flicking.
Last year, to get a sense of how hard wrangling a python really is, we had the Fish and Wildlife team show us one of their smaller captures.
You can see what she's doing with the tail.
An annual tradition that Khalil says she hopes to conquer next year.
I set a goal to catch over 1,000 pythons, and I am very close to that. My next Python challenge, hopefully I'll be able to win the grand prize. So tried real hard this year, and we'll try even harder next.
A fun family
that
hobby.
Was great. Yeah.
Our thanks to Marissa Parra. We don't have that problem in Minnesota. Our thanks to Marissa Parra for that report. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Don't go anywhere. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.